Hi guys. Okay, so in your table of contents for today, we are going to be talking about the quadratic formula. Okay, this is going to be our last quadratic thing we do for a little bit, and then we are going to move into what we call factoring. So if you will, go ahead, write your table of contents. I'm going to flip on over to that page. There it is, and if you would like to, I'm going to let you go ahead and pause and write that. And as you're writing it, I'm going to zoom in some so that way it's a little bit closer. Okay, so the quadratic formula, we use this when you can't factor. Okay, now we haven't learned how to factor by hand yet. So once we learn that, you'll see where this comes more into play. But since we're on a little mini calculator unit, I want to throw this in here. So our formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Now remember, your equations must be in ax squared plus bx plus c equals, and I'm going to put a 0 today, so 0 instead of y, because we need it equal 0. So first thing I'm going to do, look at my problem 1. I have x squared minus 8x equals 20. This is not equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract 20. That gives me x squared minus 8x minus 20 equals 0. Okay, now I'm going to come over here. I know a is 1 because that's what's with x squared. B is negative 8, and C is negative 20. Okay, so that is the wrong, there it is. Okay, so from here, what you're going to do is plug in this lovely, huge formula up here exactly as it is. So since it says negative b, we're going to do x equals negative, b is negative 8, plus or minus the square root, parentheses, because since it's squared, I want parentheses, negative 8, close parentheses, squared, minus 4, parentheses, a is 1, close parentheses, open parentheses, c is negative 20, close parentheses. And we're going to do all divided by 2 times a, and a was 1. Okay, now that this is plugged in, the first thing we're going to take care of is this double negative. A double negative becomes a positive. Okay, what we are going to do is take care of the radical first. So I'm going to keep everything as it is. X equals, it's going to become 8 plus or minus the square root. Okay, negative 8 squared. That becomes 64. And then when we do 4 times 1 times negative 20, or if you would like to read this as a negative 4 times 1 times negative 20, negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. And negative 4 times negative 20 is positive 80, sorry. Positive 80. And then I'm going to keep my divide by 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, I'm going to repeat and finish off my radical. I get 8 plus or minus the square root. 64 plus 80 is 144. And we're going to divide by 2 still. Okay, my next step would be x equals. From here, we're going to get 8 plus or minus the square root of 144 is 12, all divided by 2. So now this becomes two problems. We're going to do 8 plus 12 divided by 2, and we're going to do 8 minus 12 divided by 2. And the reason why is it says plus or minus. So 8 plus 12 is 20, and 20 divided by 2 is 10. 8 minus 12 is negative 4, and negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. So I'm going to write my final answer in brackets like what we did the other day, smallest to biggest. So negative 2 and 10. And there's my two answers. Okay, moving to example 2. I already have this equal to 0, so I'm going to come over here. Negative x squared minus 12x minus 18. A equals negative 1, b equals negative 12, and c equals negative 18. Okay, I'm going to plug in my formula, negative, and then I plug in b, which is negative 12, plus or minus the square root, plugging in b with negative 12 squared, minus 4 times a is negative 1 times c is negative 18. All of that divided by 2 times negative 1. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to fix is my double negative, and I'm going to get 12 plus or minus the square root. Negative 12 squared is 144. excuse me, negative 4 times negative 1 is 4, and 4 times negative 18 is negative 72. And then I'm going to bring in my divide by. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Okay, my next step would be 12 plus or minus the square root. 144 minus 72 is 72, all divided by negative 2. Okay, now this one, you can't take the square root of 72. That's not a perfect square. So you're going to do this a little differently than what you've done before. So what you're going to do is you're going to open up a fraction, alpha y equals, and you're going to do 12 plus, because you can't do plus and minus at the same time, the square root of 72, and move to the bottom and put divide by negative 2. You're going to hit enter, and you're going to have to give me a decimal this time, and I just want it to the tenths, which means one place, and that gives me negative 10.2 because the 4 does nothing to it. Now I have to do the minus problem, so what I'm going to do is come back up here, go to the plus sign, change it to a minus, and hit enter, and that gives me negative 1 point, and this will round to an 8. So my answers for this problem are x equals bracket negative 10.2 and negative 1.8, close bracket. Okay, so you can use your calculator to compute. I did do all the first one by hand because it was math you could do, but if you don't want to do that, put it in the calculator. Okay, for example 3, there we go. Okay, this one's equal to 0. I have 2x squared plus 5x plus 4. So a is 2, b is 5, and c is 4. So my formula is negative and b is 5 plus or minus the square root. For b, I put a 5 in again and square it. Minus 4 times a is 2 times c is 4. Okay, all divided by 2 times a is 2. Okay, I don't need to fix my double negative, so I'm going to start off with my radical. And 5 squared is 25. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And negative 8 times 4 is negative 32. Okay, from here, I have divide by 2 times 2 is 4. So I have negative 5 plus or minus the square root. When you do 25 minus 32, you're going to get negative 7 divided by 4. Okay, you can't take the square root of 7. It's not a perfect square. So we're going to clear out the calculator. Alpha y equals negative 5 plus, because you can only do one side at a time, the square root of negative 7 divided by 4. And it says error, non-real answer. Okay, so I'm going to go back to it, and I'm going to actually go and change it to a minus to see if it'll work. And it says error, non-real answer. So now I'm just going to go to it one more time and make sure I typed everything right, which I did. And the reason this is a non-real answer, let me change colors so it'll stand out for you. The reason this is non-real is because of this right here. Not possible. You cannot have a negative in the radical. You're going to learn as you get to Algebra 2 how to fix that. But in Algebra 1, you're done. It's not possible. So therefore, your answer is no solution. Or you can put the 0 with a slash. I don't care which way you write it. Okay. So for my last example, I have 4x squared plus 9 equals 12x. Since this is not equal to 0, we're going to subtract the 12x. And as you see, I put it kind of in the plus sign. So now I have 4x squared, the minus 12x goes next, and then plus 9 equals 0. The reason the 12x has to go in the middle is because it has to go in A, B, C form. So now I know that A is 4, B is negative 12, and C is 9. Okay, here goes my formula. Negative B is negative 12 plus or minus the square root. B's negative 12 squared minus 4 times 4 times 9, A and C. All divided by 2 times A is 4. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is fix that double negative. And now I have 12 plus or minus the square root. Negative 12 squared is 144. Okay, negative 4 times 4 is negative 16. And then negative 16 times 9 is negative 144. All divided by, and 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, so now you have 12 plus or minus the square root of 0 divided by 8. Okay, once you get to here, the square root of 0 is not going to do you much good, but you can alpha y equals this, and you're going to do 12 plus the square root of 0 divided by 8. And that gives you 3 over 2. Okay, then you're going to go back up, repeat the problem, change the plus to a minus, and you also get 3 over 2. So this time your answer is 3 over 2. And the reason you only have one answer is because if you were to graph it, it's only crossing the x-axis once. Okay, so from here, you're going to have a worksheet. If you have any questions, let me know.